Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to go ahead and set up an automatic deployment on our virtual private server. So as a developer, at some point you want to deploy your application to the public, and there are many ways to do this. The easiest thing to do is to just transfer all of your files to your remote server using SCP. However, in the end, we still need to SSH into our server and then restart our application every single time. And at some point, you're going to get very tired of this. So this is where something like Github Actions comes into play. So the whole concept of this is called continuous integration and continuous deployments. We're not going to focus too much on it. I'll probably save that for another video, but all you need to know is that this whole concept allows us to simply write our code and then push our changes to some kind of development branch. And what happens is we'll take the new code and we'll test it with the current code merged together, and we'll make sure that they both have no conflictions at all. If there are any conflictions, it's going to tell us the build is going to fail, and we can't merge those changes to the master branch or the production branch. If everything's good, then we can say, hey, look, maybe it's safe to actually merge these changes into master branch, and then we can then deploy it, and we don't have to ever worry about having to actually log into our server because Github Actions is going to take care of all of that for us. So the way Github Actions actually works is very simple. It's going to listen to events that occur on your repository. So when you make a push to, let's say, the master branch, Github Actions will look inside your workflow configuration and it will see that, hey, look, this person set up a configuration. So whenever a push happens on the master branch, let's execute this job. And jobs can have many different tasks, and each workflow can also have several different jobs. And you can even make it more complex. You can have certain jobs depending on other jobs. So you might want to run different jobs and making sure that they are all successful before actually deploying the latest changes to your production server. Now, if you've ever worked with Heroku, it does exactly, or if not pretty much very similar to what Github Actions does. So for example, let's say if you're working on a node.js application, Heroku will set up the runtime environment as soon as you make a push to GitHub. So that event is sent to Heroku, and on the backend of Heroku, what it's going to do is it's going to set the runtime environment for node.js. It's going to do some configuration, and then it's going to run npm install and install all of your dependencies that are listed in the package.json file. And then after that, it might run some build scripts, some test scripts, and if everything goes well, if there are no issues, then hey, look, Heroku is going to start the application. However, if something goes wrong, then it's going to tell you in the build logs. So the whole concept of this is very, very simple. It's very straightforward. Basically, you push your changes, you set up some tasks for your Github Actions to go through, and if everything goes well, then bam, we can easily deploy that without any hesitation. So bringing all this together, we can focus on just writing and testing our code on our local machine, so on our computer, and then push those changes to GitHub. And once GitHub gets those changes, it's going to say, hey, look, let's run all these tasks and then make sure that everything is good. We obviously don't want to allow the user to, or we obviously don't want to deploy broken code onto our production server. So if something goes wrong, we have to look at the logs and then fix it. So without further ado, let's actually get started in setting up the Github Actions. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply just going to create a new repository. I'm going to call this repository CICD testing G actions, very long name. And we're going to just make this private for now. So once I've done this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up an actions over here. So you can click right over here, actions. And you can scroll down and you're going to see that there are so many different configurations that you can set up. We're going to click on node.js because we're working with node.js. So we'll click on set workflow. And you're going to see right over here, we have this node.js.yml file. Okay, and you can see that this workflow will do a clean install of all node dependencies, build the source code, and run tests, and a whole bunch of stuff. So it gives you a brief description on what this workflow is going to do. And if you look right over here, we have the name. Let me zoom in a little bit. We have the name of our workflow. We have on. So on is basically just the events that we want to listen to. So for example, like I said earlier, whenever some kind of event happens, so if I were to push to the master branch of this repository, then we're going to execute the jobs right over here. Okay, and like I said, we can have as many jobs as we want, but we're going to just leave it as one for now. And same thing over here, we can also say, hey, look, whenever a pull request occurs on the master branch, let's go ahead and run this workflow. And you can also configure this too. There are a bunch of other events that you can listen to, but we're just going to go and leave it like this for now. I think you guys get the idea, and we're going to see how this works. And now we have jobs. Okay, so we currently just have one job, and you're going to see that we have the build runs on Ubuntu latest. We're going to actually change this to self-hosted, because what we're actually going to do is we're going to set up the Github Actions on our virtual private server. We're going to set up the runner on our server. And you're going to see right over here, we have strategy, and then we have this matrix over here. And you're probably wondering, well, what is this? So The nice thing about GitHub Actions is you can actually test your code on multiple different versions of Node.js, and you can also test it on multiple different versions of Ubuntu. So if you want to make sure that, let's say if your application, you want to make sure people can use it with version 10, 12, and 13 for Node.js, then you would want to pass in the versions inside this matrix. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it as 12.x for now. Okay, and then right over here we have steps. So this is pretty straightforward. Okay, it's just using the actions/checkout v2, and then it's going to specify the name, and then this one over here, action setup node. Okay, and it's going to set up the node version for us. Once all that is done, it's going to run these commands, and you're probably very, very familiar with these commands. npm CI is just npm clean install, so it'll do a clean installation. You don't need to do a clean installation, you can just leave it as npm I or npm install. Okay, like I said, this is just going to install all of the dependencies in the package.json file. So like I said, that's the same thing that Heroku does. And then over here, it's going to run the build script if it's present. So in some cases, let's say if you are using, let's say TypeScript or Babel, and you want to run a build of your project, then this command over here will run that script if it's present in the package.json file, and that's going to ensure that your project is building correctly, and if it fails, it's going to fail right over here, and it's not going to do anything else. Okay, and if you have any test scripts, it's going to run the test scripts right over here. So let's go ahead and just close this out, or get rid of this, and we're just going to leave this alone the way it is perfectly fine. And I'm going to go ahead and just click on start commit, and just commit the new file. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go and clone this repository. So I'm going to go ahead and clone this on my computer right now. And we're going to cd into it. And I'll just open up Visual Studio Code. Okay, so now we can obviously configure our workflow file over here if we want to, but we're going to leave that alone. And I'm going to go and just create a simple app.js file. We're not going to do anything crazy, but I will just do npm init-y, and I'll just simply install something like, I don't know, Express. And I'll create a gitignore file. I just want to show you how this really works. And you're going to see, wow, this is actually pretty cool. Okay, we have node modules ignored. We have our gitignore, good. And I'm just going to simply do a console log hello world. Okay, there we go. So we have our package.json file. We have our package.json file. That's all good. All right, and we should be good to go. So now let's just assume that this is an actual, real world application and it's ready for production. Then what we would do is we would say, hey, look, let's stage our changes. So git add, let's commit. So let's just say test, and let's push these changes. And now if I go over to actions, you're going to see that we actually already had a failing build already. Okay, that was when we created the node.js.yml file, but it's saying that there's no runner matching these specific labels, but don't worry, we're going to get to that part in just a sec. This is also going to fail too, because like I said, we don't have the self-hosted runner configured yet, and that's what we're going to do now. So because we're using self-hosted, that means we're going to host it on our own DigitalOcean or your own virtual private server. So we're going to go over to settings, and we're going to click on actions, and you're going to go ahead and just leave this alone, enable local and third-party actions for this repository. So this allows any action to execute whether the code for the action exists within this repository, organization, or a repository owned by a third party. And I'm going to just click on add runner. And there are actually some very good simple instructions that show you how to set everything up. And of course, you can always set it up on different operating systems and different architectures. So I'm going to go ahead and just go into my server. And I'm going to go ahead and just create a directory called deploy. And we're going to go back to the instructions. And we're just going to follow these instructions. They're very simple. We're going to go ahead and just use the curl command to get this zip file over here. And then if we ls, you can see that we have this zip file or the tar file, and we're going to need to extract it. So let's just copy that command, paste that in there. So now we just need to copy this right over here, this command, and just paste that in there. And you're going to see that we have this nice little text over here, and it's telling us to set everything up. So we're going to give the runner a name of deployment, and we'll just leave this alone, and we'll just call this deploy. There we go. So now we can see that we have all of our files in here, and let's just remove the tar file, and there we go. That's pretty much it. And the next thing that we have to do is actually run our runner. And like I said over here, it says using your self-hosted runner, you need to make sure that you say self-hosted for runs on, which is what we changed earlier. So now we're just going to simply execute the run.sh script. Okay, now obviously if we exit from this script over here, it's going to actually turn off the runner, but later on I'm going to show you how to set it up so that it runs the background service. So let's see, everything should be fine. And if we go over here, you can see that it is actually currently idle. Okay, so it's on, and you can see right over here, it's listening for jobs. And we can also add multiple runners too if we wanted to. But let's go over here, and let's actually just go to Actions. Let's go into Test, and let's rerun our job over here. So it says it's failed. It should give us this log over here on why it failed. So let's rerun the job. Here we go. So let's say, for example, if you're confident that everything works just fine, but something went wrong with the server, instead of making another push to the repository, you can just rerun the job in case it fails. So you can see that it sets up the job, okay? It runs these certain scripts, okay? And you can see that it knows where to look for. And you can see everything was successful. We ran npm I, okay? And that just pretty much installed all of our dependencies for us. We ran npm run build, and there we go, successful. Now watch this. We can see on the server that it says listening for jobs, running job build 12.x, job build 12.x completed with results succeeded. So let's just exit out of here, and let's just type ls now, and you're gonna see that we actually have this deploy folder over here. Before it wasn't there, but you're gonna see we have this deploy folder, and this folder is going to contain all of your contents of the repository. It's going to have a lot of other files though, so I'll show you how to navigate it. So when you cd into this deploy folder, this is where your files are going to be located. Okay, it's the same name, I think, as the folder you set up when you ran through the wizard for the installation for the Github Actions. But you can see that we have 5 folders. You're going to cd into the folder that matches the Github repository. So we're going to do ci/cd, and we're just going to cd in there again. And now you can see that we have all of our files. And notice how the node modules folder is here, even though we actually ignored it in the git ignore. So it's not on our repository because you never want to commit the node modules folder. But you can see that we actually have it here, and that's because of the npm I script. That's going to install all of the dependencies in the package.json file. So installed express. Pretty cool. And you can see that if I do vim app.js, we have our console log hello world. Okay, but there's one thing that we have to do. We need to actually allow our application to restart every single time we make a deployment. So that's going to be the final thing that we're going to do. Now, the thing with GitHub Actions is you actually can't specify a script to run the program. I'm not sure if you actually can do that, but I've played around with it and I wasn't able to get it working, but I did find a solution though. So what you can do is just simply run the app.js file with pm2. So let's do pm2 start name. We'll just call this deploy app.js. Okay, and now if I do pm2 log deploy app, you're gonna see it's gonna say hello world. So you can see that our application is running now. Okay, but let's just say if we wanted to make another change, let's go ahead and configure our workflow again. So let me go right over here, and let's just go to the GitHub node.js.yml file, and right down over here, I'm gonna do run pm2 restart and deploy app. So that was the name of our application that we called it, pm2 status. You're gonna see that it says deploy app right over here. Okay, so we're gonna basically just run this script, pm2 restart deploy app. So that's going to restart the application. Okay, and that should be it. So I'm just gonna simply do this. Let me go ahead and let me actually just simply write a simple express app. So let me do that real quick, just so you guys can actually see how this actually works. So let's do app.gets users test. And let's listen to port 5000. Okay, so there we go. This should be a very simple Express application. Okay, so it just simply handles the users/test route, and it's going to send back some JSON, and it's listening on port 5000. So now, let's go back here, and let's do git add, git commit, test. Not the best commit message, but we're just testing it, so don't worry about it. All right, so now let's go back to our repository, and let's refresh. We should have 3 commits now. Let's go to actions. You can see a new job is being queued, but nothing's happening because we have our runner offline. So let's go back into deploy, and I'm going to show you how to run it as a background service. So you're going to type sudo /svc.sh, and you're going to just type in your password. And you can see that we have a bunch of commands. So I can just simply do sudo /svc.sh, and then we're going to install. And we're going to install. There we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and start it. And if I do status, it should be working now. And you can see it's listening for jobs. If I go ahead and do that, you can see that it says running job build 12.x. And you can see there's 1 job in progress. Okay, run npm I. There you go. Everything was good, and it ran this pm2 start script. And you can see that it was restarted. Now, if we go back to that folder, so let's go back into deploy, CI/CD testing, so the same repository. You can see if I do vim app.js, we have our Express application, okay, and that's live right now. So let me just type logs real quick. You can see that it's running on port 5000. Okay, now if I try to access it, and if we were to go to our application, so let's just type in our IP address. Let's just do that. So you can see that we're at our Nginx configuration over here. Don't worry about that. But let me just simply do this. Let me go ahead and do sudo ufw status. So right now, I'm just simply going to do sudo ufw allow 5000 just for now. Okay. So now I should be able to access port 5000 and users/test. There we go. So we have our Express application running. Now let's make one last change just to show you guys how everything works. So let's just do this. Let's send back something like, let's see, hello world, and let's create another route, users, and let's just simply send data, name, check. We'll leave it like this for now. Okay, and let's just pretend like this is code that we've tested already. Okay, we've ran through all of our testing, and typically you would also write some test scripts using something like Jest or Jasmine, but we're not going to do that for this video. I'll probably save that for another video, and we're just simply going to go ahead and stage all of our changes. So git add dot git commit. Let's just say deploying Express changes. Git push. And now let's go back to our repository. Where is it? Over here. You can see another build is starting. And because we have our runner running as a background service, we use the SVC script over there. You can see everything's going well. Perfect. So now watch this. If I refresh, see how it says hello world before it was testing. Now that automatically updated because of this pm2 start script. Okay. And if I go over to /users now, before we didn't have this route, but now we do. Okay. And like I said, you can continuously make changes and you can continuously deploy over and over and over again. And like I said, in an actual application, you would write test scripts, and you would also run some other scripts as well, such as a build script or a simple, like, some Jest testing just to make sure your code works. Okay. And if something fails, then it's not going to restart our application right over here. You want to make sure you do the run pm2 restart deploy app all the way on the bottom. You don't want to run it all the way on the top. You want to make sure that everything succeeds, and then you restart it. Okay, but that's pretty much it for this video. So hopefully this all made sense, and I hope this helped you guys out with setting up a continuous environment where you can just consistently deploy your code without ever having to worry about SSHing or restarting your process over and over again. So I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.